All right, so let's work now on, for instance, being able to register. Okay, right now the register page just navigates to the profile page, but notice that it's broken, right? Because it used to navigate to just the profile page, right? But now the profile page all by itself doesn't work, right? It needs to know that it's the profile of a particular user, right? Before we go on, let me change this to be, instead of profile, user, right? So that it matches what you're working on for the assignment, right? So let's change that. Let's go to the configuration file that we just created a minute ago, somewhere, config, and we'll change any references to user, to profile, we'll change it to user, okay? Right? And we also need to change the controller, the login controller. Remember that it navigates to the user, right? To a particular user. Make sense? Right? So let's go back. Let's refresh. Let's see if we can log in, and this is not broken. Log in. Okay. Notice that now the route is changed to just user. Everybody okay? All right. So let's work on register. Right, when you click on register, what we want to do is maybe do some validation to check to see if the username is already taken. If the user is taken, then we don't let them use that username. If the two passwords don't match, maybe we can provide an error message. Yes? All right, so let's do that. So we want to handle an event when we click on the register, right? And the only way we can do that is by providing a controller, right? So let's create a controller for the register page. Okay, so let's see. We have a register view.html, and we have these two controllers. Let's grab one of them, right? And let's rename it register controller, and let's open that up, and let's change a couple things here. Let's see what we have here. Register controller, that looks good. And presumably there will be an event handler that handles the fact that I want to register. And that register is going to pass me username and password plus another password, two passwords, right? Where the second password is for validation, right? And let's see, find user by credentials. Maybe not. Let's see. We might want to find to see if there's a user that has the same username, maybe, right? So I don't believe we implemented that, or maybe we did. I don't remember. But we certainly hope that there is a find user by username, right? And we're going to pass the username. If that user exists, right? We might say if it's not null, meaning the user exists, right? Then we might give an error message, model error. Sorry, that username is taken. Yes? If instead the user does not exist, we might want to navigate to the profile, right? So we might do something like location.url, right, and navigate to user and a particular found user underscore ID. Oh, actually, no, wait a minute. No, I got this wrong, right? If the user is not found, if the user is different than null, meaning there is a user, we say that the user is taken. If it doesn't exist, we need to create it, right? First, we need to create it. So var new user. We can use a service for that, right? So it'll be user service, then create user, and provide maybe a user object. All right? So something like var, var new user. Let's see, var new user, and provide it with, let's create it. Var new user. We'll have, let's see, what we'll have. It'll have the username, right? It'll have the password, okay? And we can then pass it. We can pass it to the to the a new user, create user here, right? Perhaps it can give us back the instance, and that new instance might have the ID of the user that has been created as it has been inserted to the database. Yes, although we're not adding it to the database. So it would be new user dot underscore ID. And that will navigate us to the profile page. Make sense? Okay. We can do some validation as well. Right? We can say maybe, if a password is not equal to password 2, right? Then we can create an error message, model.error, saying passwords must match. All right, and then just return. Okay, all right, all right. So on the template side, on the register template side, we can create a placeholder for the error. Right, we can create a placeholder for the error. Maybe over here, you can say div class alert, and then alert danger, and show here the model.error, and only show it if show if there is indeed a model error. Yes. Okay. Now the username and password, we need to pass them to the controller, right? So they can do some validation and find the user or check the passwords. So to do that, okay, we're going to bind these to local variables, right? So this will be ngModel username, right? And bind this one to password, and bind this to password 2, right? And we're going to, oops, what did I do with it? Did I close it? There it is. We're going to pass them here when we click on the anchor. So the anchor, we don't want to go anywhere, right? Instead, we're going to notify the controller of the action. We're going to notify in an ng-click. We're going to say, hey controller, they want to register, right? And we're going to pass the local variables username, password, and password 2. Make sense? All right. Okay. So we created this brand new controller, the register controller. We can't forget to load it from our index page. Let's load it. Right. It's the register controller. Register. Now that we registered it, we can't forget in our configuration to tell our register template that it will be controlled. It will be controlled by a controller called register controller, right? And the template will refer to this controller, the instance of this controller. It will refer it by the keyword model, right? That's where we have model.register and so on and so forth. Okay. So let's refresh. There are no errors. That's good. Let's see if we just click on register. There's an error on the console. Let's see the console what it says. It says a register controller notified. So it cannot find the register controller or find user by username. Okay, we knew that, right? We never did create that from the service, right? So we might want to grab that and go back to our service if we have it open. Oh, there it is, user service. And indeed, we don't have it as part of the API. So let's add it, right? And this one is we can retrieve this. Function, and we pass in the username. We can retrieve the user from iterating over the users, find it to see which one matches. Right, so user dot. So we're going to return user dot username is equal to the username. So this will return the instance in the array of which one is the user. Okay. Now this returns either the object or returns undefined. Okay. So we need to check to see if this is undefined. Right. If it's undefined, right, to check for undefined, we use type of. So if the user is of type undefined, undefined, we're going to return null. Right? Otherwise, we just return the user object. Make sense? All right. Okay. So let's try this out. Let's try it. So register. Create user. Why would it go to create user? Create user. So yeah, we don't have create user either. I guess we check for the password. Let's step through this. Yes, let's step through this. So register. It's right here. Password is undefined and password is undefined also. So they are equal. So it passes this. Passes that test. Found. Did it found? No, it didn't find any user. Right. So it passes that error test as well. So we might want to check to see if these are all these are null or undefined. Okay, so let's check for those things as well. So for instance, we might on the controller, right? We can say if they are not the same. If they are not the same, and what else do we want to check? Or password is null. Or password or undefined, I guess you can check for all these things. Type of password is undefined. Okay, then passwords must match. So let's see if we do a password. Okay, so it's going to give us an error message. Right, it says password must match. Right, you could be more granular, right, and say that it cannot be empty or undefined or things like that. Right, so if we do give it a password, right, we're here. We also want to check to see that the username is not undefined. Right, so we could put some required variables here. We could say if username. We can do all these checks, right? If username is equal to null, or username is equal to empty string, or type of username is equal to undefined, right? We can put an error message and say that model error username is required. All right. Later on, towards the end, we're going to look at and use Angular validation. Right? Angular validation has a library to handle all these validations and highlight things and just show some content, not show different content, put stuff right next to the elements. We'll take a look at that a little later. Right? For now, this is plenty. Okay. So let's see if I do a register and I don't have a username. Oh, we forgot to return. So we're in there, okay, and we come back. Username is required. All right. So if we give it Bob, and we give it the right passwords, this says sorry that username is taken. Right. So it found the user. Right. But if it's a different username, right, it wants to go in here. Right. Create user, but we don't have that. So let's implement the create user. Yes. Okay. So to do that, we're going to go to the service and implement create user. And we're going to put it right here. So create user. And that create user, we're going to take most of the user information that already given to us by the front end. Right? So it will be create user, and here's the user information. But we're going to decorate it with a couple more things. Right? We're going to add an ID. Right? This typically would be done by the database when we insert it, right? But we don't have that just yet, so we're going to fake it for now. Okay, so we can maybe use a date timestamp. Get the time and convert it into a string, right? So that's a date. Maybe we can create a timestamp of when this particular was created. Okay, that's a record. And once we have that, we can then push it into the array of users, right? So we're going to say users.push the user. Right now, that's our data model, right? It's a little array of users. Right? It'll become more robust as we move it towards the to the server and to its rightful place. Okay, and then we can return the user because it contains the ID that we need on the controller side. Yes? Right? So on the controller side, we're going to come back with a new user with the ID which we can then pass around to navigate. Everybody okay? All right. So let's see. Let's try out. Okay, so we're going to step through. We have a new user. There it is. We have created password, username, and ID. And if we navigate, notice that it goes to that particular user we just created. Everybody okay? Right? With an ID that we created as well, a timestamp we created. Notice that if I do a refresh, right? Notice that I don't have the information, right? This ID no longer is useful, right? Because I refreshed the browser, right? And all the arrays, all the data came back to the original state, right? That does not include our new user that we added, right? The user only existed in the current session of the browser, and when you refresh, all that is gone, right? To make this permanent, we need the server, we need a database, right? And we'll do that next week. Okay? For now, that's fine, right? For us to play around, right? As long as you don't refresh the browser, you're all set. You'll remember everything from one session, from one interaction to the next. Everybody okay? All right.